Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. This morning, let us explore the 12th of 28 passages of the meditation classic Great Garuda in Flight, composed so many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer Prahe Vajra. Devoid of concepts, ever-present pristine awareness is like a precious jewel that arises amidst the spiritual friends. Now, I'm going to replace the word precious here. So what I'm going to do is, oh gosh, I'm going to italicize it. Okay. Devoid of concepts, ever-present pristine awareness is like a wish-fulfilling jewel that arises amidst the spiritual friends. Independent of change and without apprehending anything, by its very nature, it fulfills all desires. So these two pages, these very much seem to be in praise of this thing called pristine awareness. What is pristine awareness? Pristine awareness is a fancy, figurative way of talking about mindfulness and meditation. So the first thing we're told is we see it's devoid of concepts. Taken literally, that could be misconstrued to mean we're supposed to repress thoughts. But figuratively, it means something completely different. Figuratively, it means that neither mindfulness and meditation are the product of focus or faith or theory, neither of focusing or contemplating. And for that to make sense, I'm going to have to turn to a set of visual aids. Both this text and the visual aids are available as PDFs for free download. Everything I do is free. When it comes to the structure of the central nervous system, things seem to fit into one of two categories. The category of living from a state of fear, where we are rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, or being defined by empathy, being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. These things are the flip side of each other. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, and this suckiness means being defined by fear, of forever striving to survive, as opposed to simply thrive, surviving in competition or thriving cooperatively. So these 9% of humans also include 90% of meditation teachers who implore their students to rely upon their medial prefrontal cortex and dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to actively focus and actively analyze. Now, the problem is that when we overuse the prefrontal cortex, we begin presenting with symptoms of depression, no less triggering our amygdala, the seat of cowardice and crankiness and competition and cruelty. Fortunately, neither the amygdala or the prefrontal cortex, constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Consider, if you will, the simple spinal cord. Every time we inhale, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, whose fancy name is the sympathetic nervous system. And which has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, to help us to notice mind's antics of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. We have evolved to notice all manner of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with all that which we noticed? Every time we exhale, we've evolved to automatically access the end bits of our spinal cord, kind of like bookends on a shelf. The fancy name for these regions is our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and less defining. Go back far enough, and you'll find that our pre-human ancestors, or our non-human ancestors, evolved to think symbolically. Therefore, as humans, it should come as little surprise that in every culture we see figures of speech. Are there figures of speech pertaining to meditation? Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Spoiler alert, the abundant use of the preposition as is a signal that we're gonna play with a simile. Speaking of which, simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we must ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morning, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand? Now, you might ask, is the path of mindfulness and meditation opposed to thinking and focusing? No. It is only opposed to doing so in a destructive and unsustainable manner. How are we to know how to use it sustainably? Simple. The more time we spend noticing and relaxing in harmony with our inhalations and our exhalations, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds could flow, not from calculated contrivance, not from scatteredness, but from the middle point of centered spontaneity. A centered spontaneity that is rooted in the mindfulness and the meditation that not only calms our anxious and aggressive amygdala, but that gently stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, the key to being defined as being content, compassionate, and cooperative. Having reviewed this, let's return to this morning's opening text. Devoid of the tyranny of concepts, ever-present, pristine awareness is like a wish-fulfilling jewel that arises amidst our spiritual friends. What do we mean here by spiritual friends? Spiritual friends is a synonym for guru or lama or shifu or roshi or ajahn. It simply means teacher. It infers a teacher who is truly kind and truly beneficial. The purpose of the external teacher of flesh, blood, and bone is simply to acquaint us with our inner teacher. Comprised of our own autonomic nervous system. That's it. And because we're each born with an autonomic nervous system, there's no need for secret handshakes or blessings or initiations or rituals. Simply being told that the most efficient way, whoopsie, wrong button, there we go, that the most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb watch each time we feel our chest swell as we inhale. And additionally being told that the essence of meditation is the silent and mental recitation of the verb rest each time we feel our chest subtly sink into exhalation. Just being told that is enough to acquaint us with our inner teacher. An inner teacher is nothing mystical or magical. It's just a figure of speech to describe the fact that just as the small 3 tubes of our inner ear help us to automatically walk perpendicular to an absolute plane, whether or not we're on an absolute plane or the side of a hill, similarly, by cooperating, by vulnerably and passively cooperating with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, we cannot help but spontaneously experience the entirety of the Eightfold Path, mastering it in as little as a week. Independent of change and without apprehending anything, by its very nature, it fulfills all desires. So here's how this works. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever change we perceive during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel changeless. Whatever birth we noticed during our previous inhalation, during our exhalation could fleetingly feel birthless. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever death we might have perceived or imagined or recalled during our previous inhalation could feel fleetingly deathless. Without apprehending anything, we do not need blind faith. We do not need pseudo-intellectual mental gymnastics. We don't need to squander our life composing a doctrinal dissertation. After all, in the penultimate passage of the Buddha's discourse on the 4 bases of mindfulness, the Satipatthana Sutta. He explained that one could master his path in as little as a week. Now, in a week, you cannot practice the mantra, you cannot practice, you cannot complete a mountain of physical, emotional, or pseudo-intellectual austerities. But you can forge the habit of noticing and relaxing in harmony with our breathing at least once every 12 hours or so. By its very nature, it fulfills all desires. In the discourse of the faults of the world, the Buddha talked about the 4 bases of mindfulness. And in terms of dread and desire, as survival mechanisms, pragmatically, we evolved to dread peril, pain, scorn, and shame. Similarly, as a pragmatic survival mechanism, we evolved to desire safety, pleasure, praise, and fame. For in human as well as pre-human tribes and herds and packs, the most valued in the pack was given the best mating and the best eating opportunities. The least valued were not. And evolution is driven by the impulse to procreate and live long enough to procreate. So this is all very primal. Therefore, despite the ravings of 101 or 1,001 personal coaches, we don't need a vision board. We don't need to figure out what we dread and what we desire. We already are wired to do those things. In fact, our subconscious mechanisms to sniff out what we dread and desire are probably more sharp, more skilled than the front of our head could ever be. So here's the cool thing. The more we vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, the more we naturally and effortlessly move away from the dreadful and more towards the desirous. Remember, the more we meditate, the more our choices and our utterances and our deeds flow from love's centered spontaneity. This is known by many names. Some call it Wu Wei, some call it doing without doing, some call it going with the flow, some people call it expedient means. But this mechanism is already in us. The Buddha didn't invent it. Lao Tzu didn't invent it. It's already part of us. It's just a question of this. Do we go through life actively competing against our own central nervous system? Or do we coast through life passively cooperating with it in the most wonderful way? Having concluded this morning's opening lesson, we could now shift gears. Oopsie. There we go. It is General Leia Organa's Saturday morning. Let us meditate like a Jedi. After about 30 seconds of housekeeping, this is this is the Dzogchen Semdi Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus so that I could spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to Nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let us practice mindfulness and meditation. You may wish to gently adjust your legs every 15 minutes or so, especially if you are prone to arthritis. Some are prone to arthritis because of autoimmune disorders. Some are prone to it due to traumas. Some are injuries. Some are prone to it due to genetics. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In about 10 and a quarter hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.